Glasshouse. John Howard reacts to reports David Hicks will not face a fair trial in the US. The Prime Minister receives news George W. Bush wants to talk to him. Somewhere a student union is dying. And a superb athlete wins a rather unchallenging game of musical chairs.
Folks, welcome to the Glasshouse, the program that asks the question, did John Howard actually honour his promise to Peter Costello and step down, but he's so short no one noticed? Yes, the leadership debate has reared its smug, ugly head again, with Costello demanding Howard quit like he said he would years ago. But John is adamant there was no deal. So if Pete wants to be Prime Minister, he'll have to choose another suitcase. No deal! No deal! Still, Howard is thinking of resigning, but he has to be sure they're going to lose the next election first. While James Hardie's asbestos victims continue to wait for a little bit of compensation, the company's CEO has been given a 66% raise and a $2.5 million bonus. The CEO said the massive bonus took his breath away. So he's also put in for a share of the compensation. In South Australia, State Democrats MP Sandra Kank says politicians should go to raves to learn about drugs firsthand. Kank wants to go to a party. So it sounds like a drug you get at a rave, doesn't it? Dude, you got any kank? Kank wants to go to a party where there are happy people, instead of the Democrat Party where everyone's just bitter and confused. But do we really want politicians at raves? Personally, I can't think of anything more scary than Beasley and Vanstone on the dance floor. Pashing. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been forced to explain what the hell he was doing when he lifted up the shirt of a 5-year-old boy visiting the Kremlin and kissed him on the stomach. This is what Vladimir calls Putin it about. Putin also said, and I quote, he seemed very independent, sure of himself, and at the same time defenceless, an innocent boy, and a very nice little boy. Stop talking! You're only making it worse! Some people claim it was a clumsy attempt to soften the president's image. Yeah. Somehow I don't think the slogan, Vladimir Putin likes little boys, will win him a lot of votes. Congrats!
News from Canberra, Wilson Tucky. Labor and the Liberals are going to use $2 million of taxpayers' money to teach countries in our region how to run a political party Australian style. First lesson, how to waste taxpayers' money. Australia might as well export democracy to our neighbours. We don't seem to use it much anymore. And how else are our foreign friends going to get democracy? We're certainly not going to let them come here and find it, are we? I only hope we're not teaching our neighbours the same political lessons we taught East Timor. Not sure it's working, just having Alexander Downer yell out, democracy! Democracy, brown people!
very, very angry this week.
Oh, no.
Yeah, those turkey-slapping twins, John and Ashley, are considering suing Big Brother after all Big Brother did for them. He fed them, he clothed them, he sheltered them, he even filmed them naked in the showers. Where's the gratitude, guys? You wanted to be famous, you've spent a week on the front of the newspapers. You're famous now. Seriously, though, I mean, I was freaked out when I heard that some of the contestants in Big Brother had broken the rules. I thought, what have they done? Have they pronounced a word with more than 5 letters correctly? Have they had an interesting conversation? What have these guys done? In the guy's defence, Big Brother said, oh, they read the rules. They can't read! You can't read rules if you can't read. Little bit over the top when Kim Beazley and John Howard weighed into the issue. Howard especially said the show should be axed. It's a disgrace. He's fairly happy for his little Iraq show to keep going, even though hundreds of civilians die every week. But seriously, a bogan gets his wanger out in a Gold Coast theme park and all hell breaks loose, you know? Ridiculous.
Fair point.
You know who I feel sorry? I feel sorry for turkeys. I didn't even know they did that to each other. Simply no wonder their heads are all messed up.
All right, let's get to it. Joining me, Corinne and Dave, to throw some stones in the Glasshouse tonight, the one true star of The Breakfast Show on Vega in Sydney, Tony Squires. And the one true star of The Breakfast Show on Vega in Sydney, Rebecca Wilson. All right, movers and shakers. First up, the war on drugs in schools hit a new low recently when a Year 3 student took his grandmother's prescription drugs to school and tried to hand them out. His grandma nearly had a stroke. No, really. Teachers got suspicious when the kiddies started saying how their arthritis had cleared up and how nice it was to be regular again. But while little kids love the sound of speed, coke and disco biscuits, they're still pretty scared of smack. Tony, you're a dad. Can you protect your children from all the bad stuff?
No.
Tony, do you make an effort?
Of course you do. Look, you can do it a couple of ways. You can give them a lot of information, or you can go the way the path my father chose, which was abject fear. My father was a policeman and a lay preacher at the same time.
Oh, no!
Yeah.
Wow.
So in the Squires family, you weren't only going to hell, you're going to jail on the way through. It was terrific. We used to drive along the street, and this is true. Anybody who had a little bit of long hair, he would go, look at that grub. He wants locking up that grub. And he'd say to us, well, if you smoke, I'll break your arm. I hope he's not watching. He'll break my arm.
Oh, this show is very popular with lay preachers.
If you drink, I'll break your arm. And if you wear your hair over your collar, I'll break your arm. But my kids are 18 and 14, so they're kind of both more adult than I am, so it's not such a drama.
You're buying your drugs off them, are you?
My daughter came back from school, he's loaded.
But I have to put my hand up here. I have never, ever had drugs. Does that sound like I'm a born again?
Yeah. What do you mean you haven't had drugs?
I've never had a joint.
Never, right.
In my whole life, and I'm the only person of my entire era, I reckon, who my mother just said, you will die if you take drugs, and I believed her.
That said, Rebecca, you have had a bit of alcohol in your time.
Oh, yes, I'm a big shardy drinker. Don't mind a G&T, love a scotch.
Right.
But I've never had drugs.
My body is a temple.
I wouldn't ruin myself with that shit.
It's like my dad. My dad would be exactly the same. My dad, fair to say, has drunk, look, in his life, you know, a lot of beer. But he was so scared about me going out and getting a cigarette and not knowing what was in it, you know?
My dad is like 64 years old, dairy farmer who's lived on the same road all his life. He's never, never had a sip of alcohol in his entire life. Not a sip.
Really?
I mean, obviously he's mad for heroin. But, loves it, seriously. We were forever finding needles in the haystack. But, it's true, my dad, it's quite an amazing thing. He's never had a drink or any drugs, and he's only ever kissed one woman. He's like, he honestly...
Your mother, I take it.
Yeah, my mother. Yeah. He calls it the Graham Anderson 100% strike rate. He always like, you with all your ladies, 100% strike rates.
That's gorgeous.
He must have one vice, though.
Yeah. Porn.
Hi, Dad.
Rebecca, you, on the alcohol front, you talk to your kids about that. You actually, you know, if they were underage, they're allowed to drink alcohol in your house.
Well, yeah, I actually let them have a VB. I always think it's better keeping them at home.
At what age were you allowed?
Well, he's 14.
Sure,
and I
yeah.
actually let them after they've had a big, like having a Saturday night at home, or they're going out before they go out.
A couple of hard starters,
I say you can have, but don't say that. I can't hear. And I actually think it's better than
let
going...
them drink before they go out.
Yeah. A six-pack.
That's good.
Loosen them up with the ladies.
There's no way a kid who's had a few drinks at home will have any more once they go out.
Don't tell me that. Look, don't tell me that.
He was probably a good kid until you got him too loaded to have any moral judgment.
I just think it keeps it... My view is it keeps it out of parks, because I just think... I hate that.
Yeah, you don't want your kids hanging out in parks.
With flasks of vodka in backpacks. That's the big thing, where they sort of roam the streets of suburbia with flasks of vodka in backpacks.
They can afford
I'd rather they
vodka.
have the VB. I know.
It was Moselle in my day.
I remember when I first moved down to Melbourne, I was really naive from the country and went to my first big uni party off campus. There was a whole lot of massive hippies. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and we're all around a bonfire out the back, and everyone's wearing pants that they knitted themselves and all that kind of stuff. And someone was passing around some snacks, which was a pot filled with mushrooms and honey. And I just went, mushrooms and honey? Who eats mushrooms and honey? That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. I reckon it was about 5 years before I went, oh, Jesus, Corinne. I'm not eating that.
Our next mover and shaker is 21-year-old Larissa Stevens from New South Wales, who's been sacked by a mining company after refusing to sign a workplace agreement that would have fined her $200 for taking sick leave. Larissa refused to sign the AWA because she would have been docked if she didn't give 12 hours notice of being sick. But how can you give 12 hours notice when you don't even know if it's a good beach day until you get up? But the laws are good for the labour market, and to make AWAs more appealing to the public, being sacked is now called being turkey sacked. David, my friend, you are a working class man. Would you take a sickie if it cost you $200?
Yeah, I would actually, yeah. But I'd want to go to the... if I went to the races or something, I'd win it back.
I put it all on black.
All on black,
All on black, yeah.
And
Black
it's
horse.
bizarre, isn't it? Because they...
On the roulette table.
Yeah, I was at the races.
She's already had a six-pack.
I've got to say, I hate the new IR laws. I don't care about people our age. I think we'll get by, we'll be fine. We've got jobs that we can sort of... And a lot of us have signed AWA agreements in the past because it's a financial incentive to do so. But for kids coming into the workforce for the first time, there is absolutely no protection going to be afforded them. And I think it's a disgrace that we fought for 25 years for workers' rights and to get to this position of in a civilised society. And now we're going back 20 years and they're taking away every single right that we fought for. I think it's outrageous.
Sorry, did you think I was Kerry O'Brien and this was the great debate?
I I feel really strongly about this issue because I do think it's shameful that a country of our sort of nature standing.
No, I agree. I agree. I reckon is Howard playing a game of how much he can make us hate him and still will vote for him. The GST, the war now, this.
I really do think, though, with this, when he says, you know, no sale worker is going to be worse off, like, this is a really great idea. I actually think that is exactly how he speaks, and you can't deny it.
That was like Sylvester Stallone had sex with James Ray.
But I honestly think that he believes that wholeheartedly. John Howard's never had a real job.
It's always been politics.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be... I think not just about Howard, though. Like, I think a lot of politicians from both sides of politics, you've got to know what... I reckon you've always got to know what it's like to be poor. Because if you've been poor, you never actually forget how that feels. You know, that proper poor. Like, I mean, the first year I did stand-up, I earned $4,000. Oh, yes, hello, ladies. And, which is less than the dole, you know, like, it's no money. Yeah, that poor, when you're in the bottle shop, and you're not choosing wine on the vintage, you're choosing on whether the goon bag will be comfortable to fall asleep on. You know, like, you never forget it. But a lot of these people who go into politics from both sides have never... been poor.
No.
That's true. As Dave says, he seems to be doing a lot of things to try to make us work out whether we do in fact hate him. He's got away with so much. Is this... Rebecca, you're so intense and you do like to not sit on the fence, don't you? Is this going to change anybody's opinion, though? I don't think it will.
But I think the Howard Costello thing could really threaten to bring down the Liberal government. They could do it on their own.
Weird,
what is going on with this? Like, the promise from 12 years ago?
The thing is, they're diametrically opposed, so it means one of them's actually telling the truth.
Yeah.
That was the most intelligent thing you have ever said. You slipped up. You slipped up and let people know you're smart just then, Dave.
I love the idea that he thinks that your promise you made 12 years... Like, so, well, 12 years ago, he said, mate, 12 years ago, MC Hammer still had a career.
Yeah.
You know, let it go.
What has McLaughlin been doing, walking around keeping that in his wallet for all of that time?
But how cheap is he to only have one wallet? I've had 4 this year.
Maybe you should stop that.
Look, I hate to come over all devil's advocate or Piers Ackerman, as it is these days. The idea, though, it doesn't mean anything, given that there was 2 guys in a room a long time ago. Neither of them was leader at the time. Neither of them had any real idea that they're going to get into government. Times change. Why should it matter whether they made agreement then or not? People don't want Costello, they want Howard.
You see, I really like Peter Costello. He came on the Fad a couple of times and he's surprisingly approachable. He's great company.
Did he bring a bottle of wine with him?
He did.
No, he's a really, really lovely bloke. And he loves his
You've got to tell people, because people hate him.
I know. And no one trusts him, but he's probably the most honourable of any of the politicians I've ever met. I mean, he is really, seriously a decent, honest person, and he's a great speaker.
He's a politician. He's paid to smile at the public and lie through his teeth. They're all paid to do the same thing. Does that sound sceptical?
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
I'm trying to work out whether he hit on you or not.
How could you actually kiss Peter Costello? He has no lips. Our favourite mover and shaker this week is Russian tennis player Dmitry Tursunov, who's been fined $10,000 after shaking hands with the umpire at the end of the match, yanking his thumb and nearly dragging him out of his chair. Tursunov explained the thumb pulling, saying he thought the umpire's bad calls may have been due to a build-up of gas. And he was just trying to relieve the pressure. But Dmitry had also been angered by some dubious line calls and the umpire's final remark, "Thank you, linesman. Thank you, ball boys. Bite me, you Russian twat." But there's only room for one petulant wanker on the tennis circuit. I'd say who it is, but Bet Cartwright would punch my head in. Rebecca, you love your sport. If umpires stuff up, aren't they fair game?
No, I'm a great supporter of umpires and referees. I do often call them cheats when I'm sitting in my house and all that sort of stuff, but I do not believe that if you're playing in a game of footy or tennis or anything, that you should ever question in any foul way the referee's or umpire's decision. And how often do you see it where some poor father's refereeing the under-8s and some parent runs on and admonishes him for, you know, making the wrong decision, making the wrong call in a soccer match, and you just think, you are teaching your kids really bad lessons from a really young age. I just think, and how often have you ever
You're saying
seen...
you should never question authority?
No, never question... Oh, no, I never never question authority. But I also think it's just really, they never ever change their minds once they've made the decision.
Yeah.
So how dumb do you have to be to keep questioning?
Well, they're sports people, Rebecca. They're quite stupid.
Not always.
Obviously, you don't have to invite them on your show anymore.
I used to actually be a referee, and I liked Neil Diamond, so I was quite the man around the playground as a young kid.
Did you grow up? You were a rep and
All that, yeah.
And your dad was a copper.
And my
as
dad was a
well.
copper and a preacher.
You were the loneliest kid in Lonely Town.
Yeah, now that I've said it out loud, it's quite sad, isn't it?
Those soccer umpires in the World Cup, some of them were just utter dickheads.
Yeah, they were bad. There were a lot of
was,
baddies.
Like the Croatian guy who got 3 yellow cards.
yeah, if you're an umpire and you can't count to 2, don't get involved.
Exactly.
What about crowd behaviour? Is it OK for crowds to abuse the umpires, to abuse each other? I kind of like...
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, crowds, if you're there, sport's all about passion. It's all about getting behind your team and tribalism. So if you can't abuse the referee... I like to feel wronged when my team loses. I like
to blame.
I don't want to blame my team. I'm not really keen on blaming the opposition. I like to blame the officials.
My favourite 2 moments of the Soccer Football World Cup were the chants. One of them by the English fans that started the fight with the Germans was a cracker, and then one of the Aussie ones. The first one, the one that started the fights between the English and the Germans, were the English chanting, "My granddad killed your granddad, doo-dah, doo-dah."
That's grown up.
Yeah. And then the Aussies were chanting to the English, "Shane Ward's shagging all your women while you're gone."
Later in the Glasshouse, Kevin Andrews tries to remember the word for that thing workers used to do in the middle of the day before the new workplace agreements.
They can go in their lunchtime.
Peter Costello admits he'll never be charming, caring, humble, gracious, or particularly well-liked.
Well, let's try and work on the other areas.
And Crazy Kim announces the ALP closing down clearance sale.
That is why they all go, the whole lot.
Some of the rogues making news this week. Very funny. Gluing my fingers to my face, then asking who ate all the pies.
So if I had dimples, I'd be a Teletubby.
The diet's working. I've lost weight here and here.
Everyone point to the leader of the party. It's me!
You can still see the marks where Mark Latham turkey slapped me, I think. That's actually a pencil case. He's got a lot of colouring in to do today, I can see.
It's Gollum as an old man.
You can really tell I get dressed in the dark.
I mean, who would wear teal pants in 2006 that are Harry High pants as well?
I know. It looks like Miami Vice in a nursing home.
Too many people are scared of that, man. Someone's got to say no, Alan, no, you know.
Yeah, is that a toilet bag? It looks like he's wandering the streets with a toilet bag.
So I've seen him in the amenities block at my caravan park.
Is that a real photo?
It's a real photo. Look at that, like, sour expression on his face. I mean, what has he been sucking on? Princess Mary entertains the Danes with some traditional Tasmanian bogan dancing.
She's showing them where Tasmania really is.
Peter Costello finally finds a political party happy to make him their leader.
Doesn't he look comfortable there as well?
Yeah. What do you think? I reckon the locals are thinking, oh, we'd eat him, but he's too bitter.
Yes, it's time to award the coveted Glasshouse trophy, which this week is called... And the winner of the Colonel Sanders Memorial Disturbing Digit of Desire is Robert Hanna from Corpus Christi in Texas, who cut off one of his fingers, put it in a gift box and sent it to the girl who just dumped him. Whole new meaning to giving someone the finger, isn't it? Apparently his plan was to get around the AVO she took out by breaching it, one bit at a time. Robert even included a note, this is true, which said, "This is my last attempt to reach out and touch you." So the trophy goes to that digitally challenged romantic, Robert Hanna. There's not so much you can do with an extra finger, except amuse yourself going... That was my big finish. Well, that's the way it is for Wednesday, July the 12th. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Tony.
Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. And let's take a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Herald Sun has Costello. Howard lied to me. Voters, welcome to our world. The Courier Mail reports united voice on North Korea. Duck! Le Monde says penalty shootout decides World Cup. Italians pretend to be shot. And from the West Australian, Hicks tells the Prime Minister, "I'm trapped with no future. I feel just like Costello." Good night.
Join us on Friday as our favourite bookshop owner is back.